Well. All the way back to square one, eh? It's like 2024 again.
Now Majak Door. He's got the runner inside Majak. He tried the shimmy and the sidestep. Yes, the 15. How good is that?
Joel, I've just checked the calendar and it says 2025, but I feel like it's 2022 and David Noble's in our coach's box. I was shocked to wake up today and 2025 was on the calendar. Welcome back to Further North. We're sad. We're upset. Welcome to your weekly therapy session. And this is the safe space that we need to talk about our horrendous performance against the Swans. Joel is here. Joel, face reveal. Joel, I wish we could have got you on camera after something a little bit better than what we saw.
Yeah, no, it was, let's be honest, Josh, it was not a pretty game, particularly that second half made, a lot of reminiscence of what we had been having in the past few years. Let's just hope that this is a good opportunity for the team to show a nice rebound next week. Let's hope that's what this is.
I like your positivity, mate. But look, there's no here. We're clutching at straws a little bit. I think I'll tell you one thing. I was down in 29, and the one and only Marnie Cohen came down to the bay at halftime, and she is the beaming light of positivity for North Melbourne fans. And even Marnie was losing her head a little bit. And that's when we were only 3 goals down. Little do we know how she went after that, because I didn't end up seeing her. I heard she hit the town a little bit, but who knows? So, look, it's if Marnie is upset about the game, that means we were very bad. And, it was an absolute dog's breakfast. The Swans run out 65-point winners, 117-52. And well, let's start with selection, because I would really, this is, I think, a big talking point from this game. Now, you're a Matt Whitlock man, and I'm just going to, and I really like your big key position players. They're my favorite. This is absolutely not going to be questioning Whitlock and his selection as an individual and that sort of stuff. He could only do what he could do. His first ever AFL game, it is what it is. But how did you feel with us going into this game with 4 key defenders?
I was very surprised. Obviously, I think a lot of us were as fans, obviously. You go in, you've obviously got Logue, Chom, Whitlock, and you've just got Core as well, usually, that was usually doing that bigger tall role. So I thought we're going in a bit tall, and especially with Phillips coming out, I was a bit more surprised to sort of see that happen as well. But I didn't quite understand the logic. I think we talked a bit during the week, and my assumption was that you would get Core and Logue going to the 2 talls, and the idea was for Whitlock and Chom to potentially be those intercepting defenders and to roam a little bit. Obviously, not much of that eventuated during this game, but that was my feel of what they were probably trying to achieve. But I do feel that during the game we looked a bit beaten through the middle at stages, and particularly on transition, and we were probably lacking a bit more, I guess, extra legs in the certain situations. So it's an interesting watch, but I was very surprised, and I'm not sure what the logic behind it was, but that was my assumption of what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, I questioned the Toby Pink dropping, and I know Toby Pink isn't going to be the long-term option, and it wasn't really about that. Obviously, Whitlock and Logue in the future, especially Whitlock, they're the ones I want to see there. But you can't drop guys off good games and good performances. It sets a bad standard for the team. Just to be able to debut a guy against a team that I don't know why, and like you said, tactically, we don't know why maybe that was the plan. And I think that showed to be true. The Swans are a team that lacks maybe elite talls, except for McCartan. I don't know if anyone's lining up to grab too many of them. Well, they might be now, because we made them. I mean, this just felt like Josh Bruce almost during the game. But, it's just one that really baffles me when the Swans have these elite ball, users and ball movers through their midfield. And it did just look like the amount of space they found in their forward 50 to hit targets. I think the marks inside 50, were 8 to 18. And it just felt like their medium-sized players and their midfielders could push forward and just get into pockets of space easy, or they were just carving us up. And we looked too tall. And I know that it's only one extra player down there, and it maybe off the top of your head doesn't seem to make a difference. But watching the balance of the game, we couldn't mark anything. I can't remember Chom taking maybe one or two marks, but other than that, there was really nothing. I don't know if Logue or Core did at all. It just felt like we were dropping everything, and it was hitting the ground. And once it did, it was a contest that the Swans would win every single time. So, yeah, tactically, I think we've got some big questions. And I haven't watched Clarkson's press conference. I heard a couple of things about a lot of excuses, and I know there's media training involved in there. But one thing maybe I haven't been impressed with Clarkson is the press conferences and any honesty or honest feedback to the fans. So I haven't watched that yet, and I honestly have sort of avoided it because I've been so frustrated with what I saw last night. So anyway, I'm ranting a little bit here. Let's just go to how the game sort of played out. Let's split this into halves because, the first half, we didn't look good at all, but we stuck with them. Give me a bit of a rundown on how you felt our first half went.
Well, like the last few weeks, I think we've came out a bit slow. There was, we did make the most of our opportunities when we had a couple, but we were a bit slow starting. Second quarter, I really felt we started to get back into the game style that we wanted. We gave up a couple of silly goals, and we had a few poor opportunities, but I think we really had brought the game back to some sort of parity. We had brought it really even again. And I think the numbers in that quarter probably point to that a little bit more. And I think we had opportunities yet again to potentially bring that game really close. I think there was this nice individual effort by Jai where he's taken the ball in the centre and done a spin out of a big tackle and kicked it into the forward line, but he kicked it directly to the opposition at that point.
Yeah, that was the one where he could have either actually taken a shot or you just had to put it out. It was Larky deep, and he just had to put it out in the space for him to run into, and that was one of many butchered things that Jai Simpkin did on the night.
Yeah, and that particular play, it was, I believe, if he had have kicked that goal or had have resulted in a goal, which I think there was a very good opportunity at that point, we would have been on even score, but instead they directly transitioned from that play, which they did exceptionally well throughout the night, unfortunately. And that got the goal for them, and that put the lead back out to 2 goals at that point.
Yeah, for sure. I think that at the end of you're right, because Curtis kicked a goal near the end of the quarter and sort of made it feel a little bit better in the second quarter, that is. And what was it, 31 to 53 at halftime. I thought the first quarter, and look, we're not gonna go on about umpires too much here because it wouldn't have changed the result on the night, but the whistle was out for both teams, to be fair, in the first quarter. But in classic North fashion, we were getting a couple of frees in our back pockets, and the amount of free kicks that Sydney got out of the middle with Sherry in the ruck contest was outrageous, and it just doesn't make much sense. It was other little things like Sydney had kicked a goal off a breakaway. There was a free kick in the ruck, and potentially Warner grabbed it and just ran with it, and they said play on, and they kicked a goal from that. But when we did that in the second half, they bring it back, slow the game up. And, once again, I'm going to preface this. This is not going to change the game about the umpiring, but I thought the umpiring was quite one-sided especially the first quarter, and there was a lot of advantage given to the Swans in positions and moments like that with the running out of the middle and not calling it back compared to what we were getting. And I think, I just don't understand. There was a Swans fan with us as well, and even he was sort of like, I'm a bit confused exactly what's going on. And we got some soft free kicks as well, but it just seems to be this trend that we seem to get them, and I guess it's the symptom of being a bad team playing against a good team, where we're getting them in positions we can't damage, and we give away these frees out of the middle, or we'll blanket someone in their forward line and give free kicks away, chop the arms or whatever you want to sort of do with it. So, look, that was really disappointing. The second quarter was it was a boring watch, and it was an even watch. I think that was our best quarter of an awful bunch.
Definitely.
So, we sort of held our own and, gave up a late goal to Chad Warner, and they came out at the start of the third and kicked one straight away. And honestly, it was just an absolute dog's breakfast from there on.
From there, at that point, it was like we'd seen, like as I said, that second quarter, I could at least, because I was watching Game Style particularly, because I usually like to sit quite high and see how they position themselves most of it. So I'm watching, and like we'd started to like do that sideways movement a bit, and we're trying to get that running style. Sydney is very, very good at defending the corridor and forcing you down the wing, and by the counter, we weren't. When we went into that third and fourth quarter, though, particularly, unfortunately, I think I just saw a complete breakdown of a lot of the systems that we were wanting to do. So you saw, like, I guess, like when you're standing there watching from, when you're watching the game, you can see Sydney's structure from a mile away. You see these lines of Sydney players. You see up the field, when you're going to kick the ball up the field, there is just lines of Sydney players in the right positions. Mm-hmm. And by the counter, North didn't have that same structure. I think it broke down a bit during that third and fourth quarter particularly, which is very unfortunate. It's very easy to sort of pile in on individuals at this stage, but I'm not going to, there's players that play poorly, obviously, but I don't think it was the individuals. I think it was what happens in those situations for some teams, and it's happened for us for a while now, is once the game's getting away, we can go into a situation where we stop doing the things that would make us successful, and we try to either do too much or we try to do the wrong things. So instead of being the next one up in that situation, you might drop back and defend your play because your player's already kicked a couple of goals, opposed to you trying to make those plays. And that's the kind of stuff which I think we fell into in that second half particularly, is that the team structure broke down. Individuals will probably talk about, obviously, but it's easy to blame the individual, but I think it's the team structure is what the issue was at that stage. And in particular that second half, I like to go back and watch these things because I'm a nut with these things. But you start to see these things break down. Like Sydney always had that extra overlap, and our players were just, doing they overthink or underthink. I'm not sure which way it goes, but they don't do the things that they had been doing during our successful times.
I mean, look, we're a team that seems to over and underthink everything, and it doesn't, we're watching it and you're just like, how'd you make that call when that could have happened? It's easy for us to sit there in the stands and on the TV, and I understand that. And, if I was on the field, mate, I would be woeful, you know what I mean? But you're totally right. Like, there was individuals which we'll talk about in a sec that didn't have great games, but you're totally right. It's the overall structure of the team and how we play together. We're never in the right spots to win a contest. I've said this for years on this podcast, and it gets to a point for me where I'm just like, well, if I'm seeing this every single week, I'm not a coach. I'm not some football oracle. I'm just a normal human being who's watching the game and just sees the same thing all the time because I go all the time. And it's like, every single time that we bomb that ball long out of a contest without looking, and it's the same suspects every week, mate. It's LDU especially in this game, to be honest. And I know, I've talked to people about Tom Powell before, but he does it too. It's not just him. It's nearly every centre. Like Jai Simpkin, mate. Like, and we'll talk about individuals more in a sec, but like these guys, those three especially, and Tom Powell's probably the best of those three, maybe on the night. I think LDU had better bigger moments, but Powell was consistent, but everyone sort of lacked effectiveness. But they're just, our whole midfield is just bombing that thing as far as we can. And I remember, I think we had one mark. It felt like we had one mark that led to a shot at goal, which was a Paul Curtis goal. Yeah. I don't remember who kicked it. Maybe it was Colby, but someone's kicked it straight to Paul Curtis's chest out of a transition, and we just opened the game up. And it was like the one time, I think it was in the first half for his first goal, and I'm just like, where is that? Because LDU is the worst of this game. He would win it out of the middle, break away, and do the great things that he can do. And he would kick the ball like around his body and just send that thing as far as he can. And every single time, so there's the first thing that I see every single week is bombing it long. We all know that. Every North fan can see that. The fact that Clarkson, sorry, you go.
Yeah, to that point, and I completely agree with you on that. I think we'd actually clean that up a fair bit in those first few weeks.
I completely agree. And this is why it frustrates me so much, because I feel like you remember in that D's game where I sort of said, we're pulling the kick a little bit more.
Yeah.
And Sydney did this once. I don't know the players, but they were on the wing. They looked like they had nothing on. And the Sydney player looked like he was about to bomb it into the 50. And the last second, he's pulled the kick out to the forward flank. And one of their players just led straight in there and got an uncontested mark. And I turned to the people I was with and went, we have no ability to do that. Yeah. We have absolutely no ability. So just to finish the point before, we're bombing it in and then it'll go to a contest. We're not going to mark it. We know that. All right. So the options are we crumb the ball or they crumb the ball and they run it straight back up the other end. So we'll bomb it in. It'll fall to ground. And I've said this so many times. This happened. The Hawks are elite at this. 3 players behind the pack for the drop of the ball. Every single one of our players has gone up or is waiting front side of the contest facing our goals. It'll spill over the back. One guy will pick the ball up and have 2 guys in a chain to handball it to, and then they'll be out. We'll run out of players who are contesting it because all our players are on the other side of the contest. There's no one on that defensive side of the contest for the transition, and it's gone. And it'll be 4 kicks until it's in our forward, in our back line, and they've got a shot at goal. And that happens so often, and I just don't understand. And it comes from bombing it in, and it comes from not defending the transition side of the pack. And I just don't understand. And I'm ranting and I'm frustrated. So talk, because I need to stop.
No, that's good. I mean, like, I actually completely agree with you. And I think the reason that we saw that more in this game, it boiled down to, yet again, sort of what I was suggesting earlier, which was when your side's been kicked for so long, and our side's been, beaten and kicked for a long time, you yet again, as I said, you drop doing the things that you do well. Like the previous weeks, you'll often see us go from that, what I would call, you go from the inside of the pack to the outside of the pack. So you'll get that first possession and you'll hand pass it out to the guy who's running and gets the next play. What you see, and LDU is definitely a big proponent of this, and so is a lot of our midfielders, is you feel the pressure from the scoreboard, from the team, and you don't want to make the mistake. So instead of taking that, and they're all very skilled players, LD is a very skilled player, but he can step around a lot of people, but instead of taking that extra possession, they bomb it over the shoulder because they just want to get the ball out of their zone and they want to progress it forward opposed to that. And that's what we see. And to your point as well of positioning in the pack, it was really interesting watching yet again. You watch Sydney, who do it really, really well. Before we were saying, I was saying Sydney, they're a very, very good side. They've been in 2 grand finals in the past 3 years. They've been belted in 2 of them, but they're an extremely well-drilled side. But what they do in those pack situations, as well as you see, the forward always brings it in a predictable manner to the ground. A lot of times when the ball drops, and this is what the elite key forwards do regularly, is when the ball comes up to a pack, you don't let it spill over the back. You often, what Sydney was doing exceptional, is they would be dropping it in front. They'd be going for the mark. If they're not marking it, the ball's landing at their feet in front of them. And that's where the Sydney guys, they got a lot of crumbing goals. And if you watch the method of what a lot of them happened, that was what was happening. It was falling in front, and then they were getting the ball there. And we just didn't have that same mechanism or avenue. And then, obviously, once Sydney went into transition, they're extremely well drilled. They were hitting targets up the field really quickly. Our defence was, obviously had moved forward, and we weren't very good at punishing them, and they were extremely good at punishing us. They're a very well drilled side, Sydney. There's a lot of things about them that they do well, but we stopped doing the things that make us play a lot better. And as I said, one thing that impressed me in one of the practice games, I forgot which one it was, I think it might have been this West Coast one, was, and I hadn't seen us do it before, which is that ability when they were starting to get ascendancy, is we'll slow down the play and do that chip kicking around to the sides just to slow the play and slow the damage. And this game, you saw us do that for little patches, but then 3rd and 4th quarter, it was panic stations, kick long down the line. That's the kick you want to force. And when you watch us, and when they do a long kick down the line to a contest, that's us being very successful at what we're attempting to do. When they're doing those short 45-degree kicks into the middle, that's us being extremely unsuccessful. And that's the first quarter and the second quarter, you didn't see as much of that. 3rd and 4th, every single play. They weren't kicking long down the line at all, which is a real failure of our defensive structures at that point.
No, I completely agree. Look, there's lots of other things to talk about, just structure-wise. I mean, look, the ease of transition, the runners that we allowed the Swans to have around the packs and running in transition is poor. So look, let's have a chat about each line of the field just so we can keep this going. Otherwise, we'll be here all day just talking about our lack of structure. We'll start with the defense this week. I too top heavy, which we've talked about. Let's talk about Whitlock's debut a little bit. How did you see him in his first game of footy?
I mean, he was a bit overwrought in the situation, I thought. He did a few nice things, really nice things, I thought. But then I think he probably had, unfortunately, I think there's about 2 errors that led directly to goals. So it's one where he got caught, which, yet again, he's a 18-year-old,
Sure.
very junior. It's his first play. He's, caught the speed of the AFL is obviously quicker than VFL and that. And just for credit for him, part of the reason he got brought in is he had a stellar couple of games in the VFL. Like, he's been playing extremely well. So, for him, I thought, it's obviously he's very, very, very green, and he'll get there. Don't worry. It's just, he made a couple of errors, but he did a couple of nice things. He needs to get the tempo and the speed of the game, and to his credit as well. We might talk about people that drop in and not drop in. I don't think he had a great game. I thought he looked a bit overawed, but I don't think you drop a first gamer after one game. He's very far from the whole thing, but I'm not sure who. Yet again, you've got to bring Archer back in, and I'm not sure who else you do change. But maybe it's just a taste that he's going to learn a lot from as well.
Yeah, I think he might be a chance to get dropped, and not necessarily because of his performance, but because it's just too many key position players, man. We can't play with 4 key defenders ever again. I think 3 sometimes is more than enough. And I know we want to play with the interceptor in Chom, but 4 is just baffling to me. And yeah, I think Whitlock, like exactly what you said, he did some really good things. He took a couple of marks. He looked strong in. His kicking seemed decent as well. But, the pace of the game and just welcome to AFL moments where, he got caught a couple of times that led to goals and things like that. I think he maybe gets dropped for Archer just because system-wise and structure-wise. But, I don't think that's a droppable game at all. I think he showed that he's going to sort of make it at the level and he's got a lot of potential. But I just want to apologise to him for him and his first game being in the back line and being so busy in his first game. Hopefully it's not going to be like that your whole career, Matt. So yeah, look, I think maybe that's the obvious out for Archer just because there's too many tolls, but yeah, I don't agree that you drop someone after an okay first game. But then you look at Toby Pink, who I thought had a really good game the week before, and he got dropped for a player in Logue who hasn't blown me away at all this year. And look, we'll package the key defenders up and we'll just have a couple of sentences on each and then we'll go to some of the others. But Logue, whatever, he was there. Core, yeah, he was there. I mean, Amati kicked 4. So, it just felt like, and Chom, did he really do how many? I don't even know how many intercepts he got for the game. It was just probably more than I feel. I'll just have a look at it here. But, it just felt like all of our key defenders were there and couldn't really do much to affect the game at all. So Core 6 intercepts, Chom 6 intercepts. I mean, it doesn't mean it's all intercept marking. It could mean so many things. So it didn't feel like there was lots of intercept marking.
I mean, in a game like this, I don't yet again, I really appreciated Core watching that game. I mean, yes.
Oh, he fought. He battled. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he was bad or anything, but yeah.
I know that. It's I really appreciate him in that role. And Logue, I thought, played well, fairly well. It's just the issue, the defenders are often obviously the whipping boys in these situations, but the speed, movement, and where the ball was getting delivered to, some of Sydney's kicks into 50.
Yeah, ridiculous.
You're looking at that, and we haven't seen a lot of that for a long time. Sydney hitting targets in some really tough kicks and hitting it pinpoint and lace out. And conversely, when we were going forward, we tended to have the opposite. So the key backs, for a large part, no one, I don't think, got absolutely bodied and beaten. Amati,
but none of them beat their matchup, and I think that's where I was trying to go. Is when with the kicks going in like that, it's it's hard to, right?
Yeah,
and
you're never going to beat them in that situation when the ball's coming in so quick and hitting. That you're so many. A couple of times I saw them, particularly at that start of that third. They've had a couple of meetings and reconvening the defenders, and they're trying to get their position straight in that. But once players start to move and the ball's coming in that quickly, defenders have very little to no chance. Like we saw that with, Jake Lever against us in that Melbourne game. Like he's an extremely good defender. He's one of the best in the AFL. And when the ball's coming in that quickly and that, speed, no one's got a chance. Like the forwards have all the advantage. They've got the space. They've got the, it's just, the backman I felt for in this game, like it was the structure up the ground is what, like if we structure well up the ground, they weren't getting those pack marks, like, those long kicks, and that's the kind of things that you can prevent. But it's just tough. It was a tough day in the office for a lot of the backs, and, individually, I think they did well individually, and then as a unit, though, we got slammed.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree with that. I do. I feel like none of them beat their matchup, but they didn't really have a chance to beat their matchup. But no one was sort of outstanding. Like you've seen those games where Chom looks really good or Core just blankets someone and really limits their opportunity. And I guess I'm only trying to put them against their better performances, and it just none of them did much. But that's also like exactly what you said, because our midfield is so poor defensively, and our forward line couldn't hold anything in it. That if it comes in that speed with a skillful team like Sydney, what can you even do? To be honest, I thought Daniel was lively in this game. He looked comfortable enough with the ball and tried his best, but I just don't know what he can do if our team and structure isn't set up to give him free options and to open up the game. Like he ends up dump kicking it a lot, but that's not without trying to hit someone. We're the slowest switching team I've ever seen. Right? Yeah. When we switch, we take 3 kicks to get it to the other side of the ground. And by the time we've got it there, the team's set up on the wing. And we never open the game from a switch. The only reason if we switch is because that's the only guy that's free and they're too scared to try and take a risk with it. So he'll try and switch, and then the other team, and then the other players, go, oh yeah, I've got the ball. Let's just take a sec. I'm just going to have a look at everybody. Oh yeah, no one's available. Okay, and by that time, it's so slow, man. It's so slow. And the amount of times we'll mark the ball and we'll have 20 meters of space and they don't even run. They just stand there is ridiculous. So, I feel for Caleb Daniel. I think he's got a bit of criticism from fans, which I think is incredibly unwarranted. And he's still the best ball user off the half-back line we've probably had in 20 years. So, I think he had a decent game with what he was given, but once again, it's the system that's letting him down, that he can't use his foot skill to open up the game at all because no one's running. We're just calling for it long before we're trying to lead. And the only players that he can ever find that are open, kicking it super wide to the wing or kicking it back at our back line to try and switch it. So, look, credit to Caleb Daniel for giving it a crack. McDonald, I thought, was okay. He was solid enough, didn't really do anything wrong. I think he's had a decent start to the year. So I can't really fault him much there. I guess the only other one to chat about, because I guess Colby played up the ground a bit more, so we'll chat about him in the midfielders. The only other one to really talk about would be Riley Hardiman, who came on, in the late in the third, like they always do. It's like a soccer substitution. It's just 70 minutes. Get them on. Can we make a change a bit earlier? Like, can we try and do something a bit earlier? I think. It's just, did Whitlock get taken off? Yeah, he did, didn't he? Cool. And I think that's the right call. But this is another reason why playing that many key defenders is bad, because you had Robert Hansen, who was making no impact on the game, and he's the guy you should be subbing off. But because we couldn't get left with 4 huge trees down in the back line because we were getting cooked, we couldn't do anything else with it to affect the game. So, yeah, I think that's another reason why it was a boneheaded decision to play 4 keys. But Hardiman came on and did very well. I believe 10 touches. I'll just look it up here, but I think he got 10 touches in the last quarter.
Yeah, he did. It was 10. So
10 touches, 70% by foot. He looks pretty good. I wonder if he'll get it. I'm really interested to see if he gets a game the week after. So I mean, look, we can maybe package Dylan Stevens up in that. He was sort of half back and wing. As well. And I thought he was fine. And that's sort of as good as you can sort of say. The thing I like about him this year is he's not backing out of a contest every single time. He'll at least put his head over it and compete a little bit more. I thought he was fine. He was better than Darcy Tucker, which is incredibly funny because I got a phone call last night. People say, stop using Darcy Tucker as your whipping boy. And it's funny, when we were sitting there in the ground, Darcy Tucker got 20 touches and went at 95% disposal efficiency. And you look at that and you're like, wow. But you watch him play, and it's just no impact on the game, mate. And he did this thing where, and it's only one moment. And look, I know he's solid, and I know he's fine, but he has hit his potential, and he will not improve from here on, right? So this is why, like, Hardiman should be playing over a Darcy Tucker, right? It just needs to happen. He did this thing in the back pocket where he got the ball and he had an opportunity to just loop the handball over the top to somebody. He tried to take the guy on and then spills it off his own foot and gets holding the ball. He had so much time to make the decision, and it was so obvious that 3 Swans were running at him, and he just sort of went, oh, what do I do? So look, I'm not trying to make Tucker my whipping boy, but there's a reason why we all can see that. There's a reason why people do that to a degree, and it's because we know that he's not going to offer anything more than he does. We've got players like Hardiman when Goda comes back, and I know people hate Dylan Stephens, and I understand that, but he offers more composure and more run through the game, and he wasn't outstanding either. But I still would bank on any one of those 3-4 guys I just talked about over a Darcy Tucker's, veteran presence, or he's a solid guy, and I just don't get it, Ben.
Yeah, I probably disagree with you on this one. Tucker watching, one of the things I took away from watching the game was I think this is the exact reason why Tucker is playing. He did have a bad moment or two, but by the same token, everyone did. Caleb Daniel had a kick that resulted in a goal by kicking and hitting the thing, but he was trying to take on the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Tucker was actually one of the few players that I watched during the game and in those tougher moments that was actually falling back into the right structure. Because I was watching ahead of the ball a lot of the time and seeing what they're doing. And he, a lot of the times, actually getting into the right position, defending the right space and dropping into the holes. And he did a lot of those kind of things that Archer will be doing when he comes back, Moab. But I thought he was doing a lot of that well. And he was working exceptionally hard. He was running on top of the ground. By the end of the game, your players unfortunately, with the smaller engines like your Hansen Juniors and your and I thought he had a great game as well. Like Constanti, I thought had a great game. But at the end of the game, those kind of guys are stopped running. They're the ones who had stopped running. They're the ones who had sort of, put the cue in the rack and had sort of gone, okay, well, we're going to wait till next week now. Where, the players that I saw still running heavily at that stage was players like Tucker. Jai, to his credit, was exceptionally hard, still trying to run to get that ball in space. And it's something that we, Tucker, he has his, I agree with you, he's as good as he's going to get. He's not going to be better than this. But is there someone, I love Hardiman. I think Hardiman's a big part of our future. But is Hardiman going to play 4 quarters, defend as well, fall into structure consistently and tell other people where to go in space? Probably not at the moment.
Probably not, but if he doesn't get the chance, how is he going to learn that? I know, I get what you're saying. And look, we're harsh on Tucker. I just don't think he follows up. The bad things he does don't get followed up with equally as good things. It gets followed up with okay things. And I understand the balance. I don't want to go and play all the kids. I think that's a bad decision. We'll get smashed. But there's just something about him that I feel like that's a position that we've got so much talent in and guys that could be maybe producing more that I would like to see a change. And if we take him out of the team and the guy who comes in does not perform, then put him back in the team. But he feels undroppable. And I think maybe that's where my head goes to when I talk about Darcy Tucker is doesn't seem to matter anything he does. He'll get, it's like the Toby Pink thing. Toby Pink was good and he gets dropped. And then Tucker had his game was okay. And then he'll have a bad game, but you just know he's going to be there. So look, anyway, we're ranting about Darcy Tucker now. We'll move on. But look, he's a divisive player. And look, I'm probably a little bit harsh on him. You've got a much more cool head than I do, mate. So I'll back your opinion over mine.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Marnie. Jen here. Wow. That was very, very disappointing night tonight at the footy. I thought we were past performances like this, but clearly we are not. And one other thing, God, our skills are dreadful at times.
G'day guys, this is Ed from Melbourne. Just got back from the game, feeling flat. I'll leave the tactical chat to you guys, the experts, but just wanted to get your thoughts on the size of the crowd and the turnout. It felt a little small considering how excited we all were for this game after the Melbourne win and then a decent performance against Adelaide. Probably didn't help, the lack of intensity that we had on the field with the fact there was probably maybe like maximum 20k there on a Saturday night, the only Saturday night game and the only game in Melbourne on Saturday night. It felt disappointing to me. Love to get your thoughts.
Hey guys, Anthony here, long time listener, first time caller. Just give me hope. That's all I want. Just give me hope.
Glad I didn't see that game. Going by all the reports and what I heard David Kinn and Jack Rewald say, North would have lost to Richmond. They say there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I want to know, is this tunnel actually got an end? It doesn't look like it.
Let's go to the midfield quickly here. What do I say about? We have the... oh, God, I don't want to be too harsh. We have the worst gun midfield ever, I reckon, because not many players... Sheezel, let's start on Sheezel because that's a positive, okay?
Yeah.
Sheezel's best game, or definitely had the most impact that I've seen. Like, I wasn't really questioning him last week. I made a video on Harry Sheezel that was very interesting with people's responses who clearly didn't watch the video. But, Sheezel looked back to his old ways in this game a little bit. He was linking up running. He was gut running the whole game as well. Cleaner with his disposal and just making an impact around the contest a little bit more. And one thing that I was really, really interested to see, and I'll find these stats here in a sec, was his centre bounce attendances for this game, because Will Phillips going out and no midfielder really coming in. I was thinking, okay, we're going to get more Sheezel in the midfield. I would have loved to see a McKercher in there for, 8 centre bounces or something like that, just to get us a bit of pace and a bit of ball use out of the middle. And Simpkin had 16, Sheezel had 12, and he had 10 the week before centre bounce attendances, which I was really shocked at because he should be getting more than that in my opinion. Luke Parker actually had more CBAs than LDU. So, it's a really weird mix at the moment. Our 3 guys who have the most centre bounce attendances by a decent way, or you could even throw Simpkin. So the 4 guys who have the most centre bounce attendances: Simpkin, Powell, LDU, Parker. And there's no players there who I back by foot. Maybe Parker. Parker's a good kick, but, we lack pace and we lack skill out of our midfield. And if that isn't the most accurate summary of what our midfield was yesterday, I don't know what is. And then when you look at Sheezel 12 centre bounce attendances and McKercher 0, I don't really understand what the balance is in there. There's no balance is the answer. It's all the same similar sort of players, which can win the ball in a decently elite way and then dispose of it poorly. And that was sort of, for me, felt like the story of the day for the midfield. But let me know if you feel differently.
Yeah, I mean, we were thoroughly beaten in the middle, and I think it was...
Smashed.
Yeah, smashed. And I think it was... as I said, I'll still put down, most of their goal sources were from turnover. Mm-hmm. That's just the way that the game was going, obviously, except into that third quarter. I think we started to see a fair bit more.
But it's more about how we score, though. We got 8 goals for the game after we've been scoring basically 100 plus, so it felt like we could put that on the board. And our midfield, it's not necessarily about us getting on top to stop the Swans scoring. It's about us being able to score ourselves.
I think they go hand in hand to a large extent for me. I don't think we like pace. I think we do have a lot of pace in there. I think the bigger issues are how do I describe it? At centre bounces, you're sort of always a victim to, it can be downhill ski. Once the ball starts moving in one direction, you're in trouble and going back. But it's probably those around the ground situations where you see a bit more of the impact of that. I think our midfield really crumbled under the pressure that Sydney was putting in there. That's why I said LDU as an example of someone who did, and he did it a couple of times because he was forcing that kick over the shoulder to just gain ground opposed to that extra step out, which is what some have done. And I don't think we at all did that during this game where we had that second and third disposal, where you saw a side like Sydney, when they were on top in that third quarter, they were getting that second and third pass and they were running it towards the 50, and then all of a sudden those forwards are leading up and those targets are opening up. So that disconnect between our midfield and the forwards, particularly from CBAs, and even more so even as well from, I guess, like throw-ins and around the ground stoppages, we really suffered, and the forward entries really suffered as a result. And the midfielders looked very poor, I think, as a result of that kind of disposal. And yeah, it's a hard one because I think I'm really hoping that this, like I said before, the show to you, I was like saying how we're going to have a game or two like this season. We're not,
For sure.
we haven't turned around and become a much better side, but what you want to see is like next week against the Gold Coast is a really important, scary, but it's actually a really important game for us to, show that, we've grown as a side, because so many, like last season, like watching those first 9 games or first 11 games where we lost, and with the exception of a half against Fremantle, nothing was competitive at any stage of any of those games. Like they would kick 8 goals and then their game was over, and we're essentially just watching two sides, run around on training drills. We need to make sure that against Gold Coast, we really step up, we really put pressure on, we really improve our defense, we do all the right things. Like, I'm not saying win.
Like the Adelaide performance, where I felt like we went up against a very good team, but we held our own the whole game. We didn't give a run of more than 3 goals. We kept our toughness and our fight the whole game. And that was the most disappointing thing about this one, is just it did feel like last year where we just roll over and give up these crazy runs. But you're right. You're totally right. Like, look, is the game next week winnable? Probably not, to be honest, because they look great, and I'll concede now. I didn't believe in the Gold Coast at all, and I said on the preview that if they beat the Crows up there, controversially, may I add, I don't know if that was a mark or not, but if they beat the Crows up there, then I've got to concede and say, look, they're doing the right things.
I told you top 8, Josh. I told you top 8.
Well, you did, and look, I'm eating my humble pie, mate. But it's I get what you're saying with, that next week is an opportunity to perform again. But, then we're going into a game against Carlton, and, that's the scary one, where if we're both going in 1-5, and we play Carlton back into form, I'm going to be very upset. But look, let's get to some other numbers here, and then I want to talk about a couple of other guys in the midfield. So Sheasel 34, Parker 27. I think that was they were our 2 best midfielders on the day. And then, you're sort of getting back to your LDU had 25 touches, but, he had these flashes, but didn't break the game open. And as we know, a lot of his kicks were sort of just bombing it long. I really liked Colin McKercher's game. I think the first couple of weeks he looked a little bit off and has sort of grown into it. I mean, when he's running with the football, he always makes a good decision. I said at the start of the year, I think Colby's A grade, and he's going to be one of our better players by the end of the year. And I think the last couple of weeks he's really, really shown that sort of quality. And I feel like if he ever gets the ball forward of centre, I at least know that there's going to be a good decision be made. I think he's probably our best kick now, to be honest. Maybe him or Daniel. Sheasel has been a little bit off this year. Sheasel had a moment as well. And like I said, he had a good game yesterday, Sheasel. Overall, I really liked his game. I think he was arguably our best. But he had a moment in the forward flank where he got the ball and we all said in the bay, okay, Sheasel's got it. We're gonna hit a target here. And he just chipped it to a contest and it went out of bounds. And you're like, I need him to be more assertive there, or tell someone to lead. Remember when Boomer would get it outside the 50 and you were just like, no, it's cool. He's going to hit someone right in the chest and we're going to get a shot at goal. And we just don't have that anymore, and it kills me. But McKercher, tick for me for this game. I think he was really, really good and one of our only driving forces, probably our only player who would drive us forward in any sort of efficient way. And then you look at
those games as well that Finn O'Sullivan as well. I think he's one of our elite kicks now as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
He actually, it's amazing, what I think he's added, what he adds to that backline mix. He's not going to make a difference on a game like yesterday, but that cool head to be able to do those. He's the one who hits those short kicks pretty regularly and defends well and just creates a bit of space as well. He's another one that I'll put into that mix. I'm very excited with him now. I think he's been exceptional.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at some of the other numbers, I mean, Dylan Stevens, 18 touches, 94% by foot. I thought he was okay. Powell, 22 touches. It's sort of one of those games that's like, he was fine, but maybe not the impact. Like LDU, 25, and sort of didn't break the game open at all. The person we need to talk about, which unfortunately is going to be a negative, is Jai Simpkin. He was shocking in this game, and he does a lot of positive things. I love him as a leader. He was barking orders in the back line, around a contest when we weren't doing good enough. But is he the guy to set a standard by foot and he with his skill? I don't believe so, no. And, there's been I can't remember where I heard it. I don't know if it was another podcast or a radio clip, but talking about some of Simpkins' numbers and how he's stacking up against some of the best in the game. And, the numbers are one thing, and I just want to talk about numbers quickly before we move on. But Simpkin is almost a good example of our entire midfield, is where you look at some of the numbers and you're like, okay, we're decent. But those numbers, when you go to the stadium, mean absolutely nothing when you see the way a clearance for us is bombing that thing as far as possible. Yeah. But if you bomb it forward or you spear it onto a bloke's chest, it's still a clearance. And we won clearance. Well, it doesn't matter because all of the clearances were rubbish, or they look at the contested possessions. Well, just because we took possession doesn't mean we did anything with it. Hit outs to advantage. Well, does that mean we actually got the clearance though? You know what I mean? So it's really concerning. And because all these, I hope Clarkson's not going in there and going, look at all these numbers that we're doing, boys. Look at we're competing in the midfield. Look at the numbers. The numbers don't mean anything from what I'm seeing when I'm sitting there in the stadium and watching it. And every fan should feel the same. Now, going back to Simpkin, his kicking, mate, is abysmal. And the one you pointed out going into the forward 50, not good enough. Absolutely not. From a captain and someone who's going to bark orders at people, which I like, and I like that he's our captain. I think he's a good leader. But you cannot kick like that. He had 4 turnovers in this game. I don't know if the total, but he had 4 turnovers that stood out so poorly from his kicking, just trying to, run straight and then last second switch it down to the forward line or the forward flank, and he would just butcher the thing. His kicking is so bad, mate. And then he would, in the back line, he sort of was the second from a kick out or something like that. He used his left and he put it straight on someone's chest, like 25 meters away under pressure. So why when you use your right foot forward of center, can you kick it so bad? And then you're in the back pocket under pressure and you use your left and you're cool, composed. Just doesn't make any sense to me, mate. So look, I'm pissed off at Simpkin because there was moments there he could have opened the game up for us, and I want our leaders to stand up. And he just contested work-wise. I'm not questioning him. Endeavour for the footy, running all day, fighting to the end. I'm not questioning that. But what's the first thing you do when you get a football when you're 4 years old? You kick the thing. And so kick the ball good. You get paid to do this. Every day you get to rock up at a football oval and kick it straight. And there's pressure. I know it's not that simple. I'm just ranting, but you know what I mean.
It's one I agree with you, and I think it's been that way for a long time with Jai. That's been a big knock of Jai on Jai. Myself, I've had that knock on Jai for a very long time, and I know that a lot of the fan base has as well. Like, as I said, like the one that I pointed out, I think was a very key moment in the game. Like, as I said, like he'd done all the good work beforehand. He'd done that nice spin. He'd gotten through the tackle. He was running into 50. The score is, I think we're down by 8 points or 9 points, and there's a one-on-one contest, and he's got the ball running into a 50. He's probably dog-tired from that run that he done the whole thing as well. But
it's your job.
Yeah, the elite players and the great players are the ones who will, in that situation, hit the target. And that kick was actually, I think, in fairness, like without obviously being overstating on it, like that was a turning point. Like that was a massive turning point. It was going to be a 3-point game halfway through the second. North having momentum and moving the ball, and it's gone from what should have been a shot at goal to a 2-goal lead to Sydney. Then I think their next ball was a throw up, and they ended up getting the ball and kicking another goal quickly from the clearance. And that was unfortunately a really, really poor moment. And I think, like I said, like he runs all day. I think he's a good captain choice, but I don't know what to do with that situation because like he does that a lot. Like he is one of the least reliable people kicking into 50. And
Completely
not just
agree.
from the fact of kicking it to not the advantage of the player, like out and out just kicking it to opposition at times. And that's what he did in that moment. He just hit Blakey, I think it was, on the chest.
Yeah.
But like he does that a bit too regularly for my liking, and he's a great player, and he's a much better kick than that. I'm not sure if it's all in his head, as in like it's just something that's worked up in his head now, but it's a tough one. It's really hard to know, and like and it's hard at this point. Like he's at that age where he should be, an elite player in these circumstances. So
he's in his prime. He's got his big deal. He's captaining his football club that he loves.
Yeah.
And I really like Jai Simpkin, and it's not a personal thing, obviously. The fact we've got to point that out on the internet is crazy. But, it's that's the way it is. But, yeah, it's just not good enough in those times, to be honest. And he would know that. So, look, let's see on Jai how he comes back. But you're right. It's been too frequent for too long with him. That breaking the tackle and spinning out of the tackle, everyone in the bay got jumped up, and we're all celebrating and going, yeah, come on. And then I'm standing up in the bay going, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And then he butchers it, and I'm just a head in my hands. And you know why? Because I kind of felt like that was what's going to happen as well. Yeah. So we're at that point with Jai, unfortunately. But hopefully he comes back stronger, and I'm sure he does seem like the guy who knows his flaws and would criticise himself as much as possible to get better. So, look, anyway, let's go to the forward line. There's probably not heaps to talk about in the forward line because they didn't do much. I mean, Larky didn't do anything until the last 5 minutes of the game. And
he evened the Coleman in the last 5 minutes of the game.
He did even the Coleman. Yeah, fantastic. So, yeah, look, he was pretty irrelevant all day. Even played ruck a little bit, which terrified me. I knew it was done when Larky's pushing up in the ruck. So where's Darling and Sherry? I mean, speaking of Darling, I think, do we rest Darling? Do we
I wouldn't rest him. I don't think. Like he didn't have a good game. Like
no, seven touches, 6 touches, I think, for the game.
Like, I mean, I wouldn't be dropping him just yet because I don't see who comes in for him. Maybe you could argue Teagle in that situation.
Well, this is where I'm saying, like, throw a Whitlock forward. Like, imagine if we had, or Chom, in this point in the game, 3/4 time, where we're not going to win the game, right? Like, I understand anything's possible, yay, but don't be idiots. Come on. Like, we can see how we're playing.
Yeah.
It's to not shake anything up and just to keep the same thing going that isn't working is insane. And you've got this, I know they subbed Whitlock up, but throw Whitlock forward.
Yeah.
Like he can take a mark, throw Chom forward and keep Whitlock back or something, do something. And Darling, I would love Jack Darling. He's been so good for this team. And I don't want to drop him on his game. I'm just saying, because the last week he wasn't incredible either. His first 2 games were so impactful, and you're like, wow, look at this guy. And the last week you're like, okay, he looked a bit flat. This week he looked very flat personally, and I'm like, do you just need to give him a rest to come back for a bigger, more winnable game against Carlton? Sorry, my voice. It's I've been sick all week, so my bad for that. Clip that up. It's do we give him a spell for a week to bring him back against a game that should be at least competitive against Carlton?
I mean, like, I'll say no, not for Gold Coast and not for Carlton yet. I think for us, the bigger thing with a player like with swinging people forward and back, like, to be honest, in this game particularly, swinging someone forward is pretty.
Yeah, but why do we have a million swingmen then? And this is something I've been questioning for why is Will Dawson swinging forward sometimes when he played? Why do we draft a 200-centimetre swingman who can play both ends of the ground? Why we got Chom who can go forward and can go back? Clarkson says this stuff in his press conference. We want versatility. Yeah. And then I always say, well, if you're versatile, that means you're not nailing one position. Yeah. And then if we're at the bottom of the ladder all the time, how about we get some players who can dominate their positions instead of play everywhere but not be the master of one of them?
Yeah. My argument for that would be, like in a game like it's specifically to this game, we weren't getting the ball forward after half time. Like it wasn't getting in there. So
I guess, but they weren't marking anything down there either. So you may as well try.
Yeah, but like at least you've still got and you need to like a Whitlock. I do think long term forward will swing forward and do some more swing forward, but it's his first game of AFL footy. He's a defender. We've been training him in defending all season. To swing forward on the very first game would be a bit too like a Chom. You could make an argument for, I think, but I think Chom also think is yet again like the thing that I've actually been impressed with him at the start of the season, and even in a game like today, I was fairly impressed with it, or yesterday, was his battling one-on-one, I think, has been much better. Like, he's not out and out getting beaten in the one-on-one marking contest.
Yeah.
He's a lot of the time bringing it to ground and competing exceptionally well. So, I mean, I can understand like wanting to shake up the Magnets a huge amount, but we're not nailing at that game particularly, or this game particularly, we haven't been nailing our actual game plan at all. Like, we're not actually doing the thing that like after halftime, we stopped doing what we should be doing at all and switching up. I'm not sure what, like the thing that we did do is we looked like we moved Larkey and Darling to the back line.
Nick Larkey's like contested like a kick into the 50, and he was like a defender, and we were all sitting there going, God, here I am component for move the Magnets, but not that magnet. That magnet stays on that end of the board.
But I think that the part that was happening is that the volume of ball that was coming in so quickly and so hard, you had, everyone had to get back into defence, and like we'd gone into a turtle shell to an extent, like just to try to mitigate the damage that was happening. And that was the moves that we made. Like we did make moves, but like I said, I wouldn't be doing huge changes in a game like that where we're not good enough as side. We're not nailing the game plan that we have to try to change game plans halfway through with a side that's, still developing and learning our game. But like, we will get better, hopefully. We'll get better throughout the season.
For the love of God, can we get better?
We'll get better throughout the season at sticking to our game plan in those situations, because that's, I think the biggest thing I saw in this game was third quarter was a complete breakdown of the game plan. We stopped doing the things that we do well, and we played purely defence on what Sydney does well. And you're not going to defend Sydney well at what they do, because they already do that well. You're not going to beat them trying to stop them doing what they do. You have to. A game of footy is always two teams trying to put in a game plan and one team doing it well. And that game, we stopped doing our game plan altogether, and we were trying to stop them doing theirs, and we were going nowhere near it. So, the forwards, the only ones, I think there is worth mentioning is JK's first half, I thought, was absolutely stellar.
Well, I was about to ask you about him too, so if you want to chat about him, go for it.
Yeah, so I think his was stellar. He brought a lot of energy.
He was fiery too. The first 10 minutes of that game was hot.
Oh, yeah, and I think he really, he did like 3 or 4 really hard tackles, and he was retaining the ball, and that's when I think we were up and flying, is when he was he brought a bit of energy. You sort of want to make sure that you keep your head, and I think he did that really well. Mm-hmm. Curtis, I would make arguments for. I think that first half particularly yet again, he was really, really good.
Yep.
Larkey, Darling were absolutely towed all game. You can argue the delivery wasn't good, which I think I probably would, but they were beaten very comprehensively.
But they've been making something of that poor delivery in the first 3 games as well, and didn't find a way to do that. Zerha as well. I think Zerha
not really sided hugely for me.
Not really sided at all. And this was a game that I was a little bit disappointed maybe from it. Zerha, Curtis was still got 2 goals in the end of the game, so didn't have a crazy impact over the 4 quarters, but still managed to get on the scoreboard. Constanti played his role, but going into the game, I did the preview with Deebs from True Bloods, and he sort of said he's worried about your Zerhas, your Curtises, because the Swans don't maybe have the best players to be able to defend them. And that was a game I was like, okay, if we can get 8 goals between them or something like that, 7-8 goals between them, we're going to go a long way to winning this game. When Larkey chips in with his, he chipped in the last 5 minutes, but no, Larkey should chip in with his 2-3 goals or whatever. And we just couldn't take advantage of that. And that's all down to structure for the Swans and how good they are at following a game plan. But that was our opportunity, and that was our way that we could have done something, and we didn't. And no wonder our score was so low. Cool. We got over 40 points we were still 30-something points in the last quarter, I think. So it was 39 points at 3/4 time, which is so bad. So, look, there's not much else to chat about with the forward line, I guess. Just pretty poor across the board. Curtis was probably our best forward, and I like the pressure Constanti brought. 2 points for Constanti. I wish he could have kicked one. The celebration would have been so much fun to see him absolutely give it to somebody. But, I love what Constanti brings. And I love what Curtis has been doing this year. I think Curtis has taken a decent step, even for games that he doesn't look, we're not playing incredible. He can still contribute in. The last thing we'll touch on before we go to some of the votes is we didn't talk about Jerry. Yeah, I think got pretty comprehensively beaten by Grundy, and that was something that I wasn't expecting at all. Grundy hasn't been a ruckman that's impressed me for a while, and obviously a very, very different type of ruckman. But physically, Grundy bullied him, to be honest. Jerry was getting pushed around. He was getting pushed under the ball. He was getting I don't know the hit-out stats, actually. I think we lost the hit-outs fairly easily. I'll just look them up here, but you know, I didn't feel like Jerry, 31 to 24 hit outs. We lost the clearance. We lost everything in that aspect of the game, to be honest. And is it because Jerry had his knock? He looked a little bit slower and ginger, but God, who are we bringing in? So, he's got to play every week. So it doesn't really, who cares about his hamstring, mate? He's got to play. So I don't know. It was, not Jerry's a gun. Not, he'll come back better, but on the day, bullied.
Yeah, I think he was very, very sore.
It looked like it
very
too.
Sore today. Like he went down early in that first quarter. I think he's battled through a lot. I'm not gonna, like I said, he didn't have a good game. There's no selling it. Otherwise, he wasn't his normal self. I think he was very, very sore, and I think when he was sitting on the bench 10 minutes in, 5 minutes in for a prolonged time to the game, I was questioning why we.
When Larky was in the ruck, that's how I was feeling too. I'm like, well, where's Darling? So Darling's forward, Larky's in the ruck.
I think it's because they need to give extra time off for Cherry. I think Cherry. Yeah. I would be shocked if he wasn't actually a lot sorer than it's sort of been, noted. He looked like when he went down in that. I said he went down pretty heavily in that first quarter, and he was on the bench for a lot of time. It says he's 79% time on ground, which is one of the lower ones. I'm not sure what he usually does, but I imagine it's more than that. And the time that he was on the field didn't look overly like his normal self. And
around the ground there was no impact from him. Yeah. You could see Grundy just doing everything around the ground, and Jerry wasn't there. So look, I'm sure he'll come back bigger and better than ever. But not his best day, unfortunately, along with everybody, to be fair, on the entire team. So look, we'll go to the Sean Atley Club Champ votes now. I've got a 3 here, and I don't think there's much question, but I am always interested to see how other people perceive the game. I've gone She's 3 votes, I've gone Parker 2 votes, and I've gone McKercher 1 vote. If you want to throw any other names in there and we can debate it, let's go. But I thought about Caleb Daniel because I think he battled so hard to try and push us forward, but we just let him down. Other than that, I don't really know other players. Like Constanti, yes, but I think overall impact on the game maybe not enough for votes, but I think I loved his energy.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's vote worthy.
Constanti would be one that I would raise potentially for a vote just based on that effort was there the whole game and he just looked through everything. It's going to sound strange, but I actually, even though he was beaten throughout the game, I loved Core's effort today. I actually thought watching him, what he actually did in that back line, him working extra overtime, him beating his one-on-one contest, and often, he's going to be one of those players for us that you're going to see the fingerprints on him throughout the side in a few years. You're going to have all these players that have done well, and they're going to be so good as a result of what Core has done in leadership and teaching in this back line for the really hard years. So, I'm really respecting what Core's done these last 2 years, just based on that.
And I don't disagree with you with that. I mean, his opponent did kick 4.
Marty, I think they switched around a bit. But
they did.
It's not like they don't tend to stick as much to one. But
he's become a very reliable defender, and obviously from where we were all at a few years ago with him, which was absolutely fair criticism at the time. He was abysmal, but he's really pulled himself together a lot in our back line, and is our leader in that back line, to be honest. So, look, you could probably convince me on Constanti a little bit more, though.
Yeah.
Maybe for the 1 vote, but I feel bad. I thought Kirch was really good and one of our only clean players this game.
Yeah,
would you argue for anyone else there? Like Parker? Do you think Parker for 2?
Sheasel, that first quarter was absolutely stellar. He did everything to sort of try to keep us in that game, and then for the rest of the game he played well, but he didn't particularly stand out as much. But he was no one in fairness, really stood out that much to me hugely this game, particularly. I thought I said, like, when you so comprehensively beat in the middle, it was really hard. I mean, like, the player, like, Sheasel, I wouldn't disagree with the 3. Parker, I wouldn't disagree with the 2. I think you could switch them around at a certain point to be fair.
I'm going to say here, like, I'm just looking at Parker's stats and I'm like, you know what? 2 goals, 27 touches, 8 tackles, did how many clearances did Parker get? 5 clearances. Jeez, it's nearly Parker 1, isn't it? So, sorry, 3 votes.
Sheasel's it from 92% time on ground as well, which is, great for his engine. But, I mean, like, those 2 you could argue either way, and I'm not going to disagree with either of those. I can't think of another one that you put up there. But I think the bit roles that I actually valued for me personally was I loved Constanti's bit role. Curtis, I thought, when the game was up and going and hard, he was actually, like, in the first half, he was one of our best players. He was the only forward that actually looked like doing anything for a huge most of the game. The only forward that actually looked semi-dangerous. But, yeah, I wouldn't argue with... I mean, like, I'd probably have him ahead of Kirch. Like, I liked Kirch's role, but I just don't think... Like, for me, Curtis, I think in a forward line, they've got so little impact of the ball. I think his efforts and his workload was actually really high. So I personally would have him above Kirch, but...
Okay, well, look, let's go. So I'm going to put because of the 2 goals Parker kicked.
Yeah,
I'm going to put Parker 3 votes. I think that's fair. I was debating Shees and Parker. Shees maybe on the eye test looked cleaner and back to his best, but Parker 2 goals and put his head over the footy. So I'm going to go Parker 3, Shees 2, and do you want to go Constanti 1, or who are you going to throw 1? You can pick the 1 vote for this game.
I'll go Curtis.
Curtis.
Yeah, I just still think he was the only forward for the game where it was really starved. That when the ball got kicked in, I never thought Larkey was marking it. I never thought Darling was marking it. I thought Curtis was actually impacting the play when it went forward.
Okay.
And J.K. Mowat I actually really loved as well. But I would say Curtis because I think he just...
All right. Are you going to lock in Curtis over Constanti? All right. Well, look, guys, when I post the votes and you're all upset that Curtis is in there, because I can sniff this from a mile away, you know who to call because it's not me.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro. Unbelievable. So, all right, Parker 3, Shees 2, Curtis 1. You've got me. All right. Golden helmet moment of the game. I mean, there's only one for me. It's got to be Parker's goal that he kicked. I think that got the crowd off their feet, and that was the best moment. Little did we know it was going to be all downhill from there, but it was great. Little tap to Scott, maybe it was, and then handball off to Parker, who sort of snapped it around the body in a contest, and got around it. So I think that was the moment of the game. If you want to throw anything out, any other moments of the game out there, please let me know. I mean, Constanti scrapping everybody was fantastic.
The tackle after he'd gotten the free kick on whoever that was. The second tackle, he's feeling mean today. The other one, obviously, for me, that I agree with you, that's the moment of the game for us. The only other one I would say would be McKercher's running goal from 60 or 55.
Yeah, I was going to say Kirch as well.
Yeah. That goal, so but like it's got to be the Parker goal. Like that's match full of downs. That was an up.
I feel bad for McKercher not getting votes now. I think he was really good. It's fine. We've already sealed it.
It's in.
22 touches. He kicked a goal. 90% by foot. Oh man, so rough. All right.
I need more from you, Kirch.
Oh God. That's such a harsh bar. All right, look, let's get out of here, I guess. Thank you for coming on again, Joel. Thank you for coming on, and sorry it had to be such a depressing Sunday morning after coming against a loss of great proportions, mate. It's once again, I'm just double checking. It is 2025, so I don't know what's going on, but hey, let's go and smash the Gold Coast over at a football ground no one's ever played at. So that's going to be fantastic. And hey, there's plenty of vineyards out there, and by halftime, if you need to drown your sorrows,
what an opportunity to go grab
what a fantastic opportunity. Maybe, I don't know, I think we play at some stupid time like 12:30. Maybe book a wine tour for 1:30 to 2 o'clock. Just in case it's going bad, and you can have something you can say to your mates. Sorry, boys, gotta go. Got a wine tasting. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. If you've made it to the end of the show, you're a true OG fan, sitting through this depression sesh. But hopefully this helps. Your weekly therapy dose is back. So thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and comment under the video. It means a lot, and it's cool to get engagement from everyone and hear what you guys are thinking. Instagram is the best place to follow along what we do. Further North Pod. TikTok is going off this year. I'm trying to make that short form content for all the Gen Zers. So that stuff is fun. And I actually kind of enjoy doing that. So get on that. Facebook's around. And yeah, get down to Bay 29 for a home game. I think we'll be back against Carlton, and everyone can get there and throw some kangas. Hopefully after halftime, which means we're still in the game. So anyway, I'm going to go cry and edit this, just the normal combination. That's why it feels like last year to me. But thank you once again, Joel. We'll chat to you in a few weeks' time, man, and hopefully we've won another game.
No, don't worry. We'll win more. We'll win one of these next two. I'll call it.
All right. You're the oracle, mate. I believe you're brave. All right, mate. Thank you. We'll chat soon.